In a conversation with President Xi Jinping of China, Prime Minister highlighted India's concerns on the unresolved issues along the LAC in the western sector of the India-China border areas. Prime Minister underlined that the maintenance of peace and tranquility in the border areas and observing and respecting the LAC are essential for the normalization of the India-China relationship. In this regard, the two leaders agreed to direct their relevant officials to intensify efforts at expeditious disengagement and de-escalation.
The three-day BRICS summit has concluded with inclusion of 6 new members. Cyril Ramaphosa, the current chair of BRICS countries, had announced that they have consensus to invite 6 new members, including UAE, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Argentina and Ethiopia as part of BRICS grouping. But from an Indian perspective, what everybody was waiting for, whether Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping will have a conversation, because the bilateral ties we know has been going downwards only ever since the Galwan clash, and since then there has been a couple of occasions when Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping have been under one roof, especially on the occasion of SCO summit last year and G20 summit last year in Bali. But they have hardly had any conversation or any structured dialogue that one can say would pave way of normalcy between the two sides. During the SCO summit level talks in Samarkand, they did not have any meeting. And even during G20 summit level talks, it was not an official or structured dialogue, but Prime Minister Modi had a brief exchange of greetings with the Chinese president, and they did talk about stabilizing the relationship, bilateral relationship. This is what the MEA has told us recently. This time around also, now Vinay Quatra, Foreign Secretary, has told us that there has not been any structured dialogue, but they did meet. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping meet, and they did discuss about the issues of border, and Prime Minister Modi raised his concern about the disturbance or the issues in Western Ladakh, where Indian Army and Chinese Army, they have been they have been deployed in the countermeasures, and it has been a massive deployment in decades that India and China both have done, with all the advanced weaponry and thousands of numbers of troops on both the sides, increasing the tension between the two sides that has stopped having any normalcy kind of situation ever since the Galwan clash has happened. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has time and again clarified that unless and until the border situation are settled between the two countries and Chinese aggressive posturing ends, there cannot be a possibility of having a normal relationship between the two countries. We have seen that taking a toll on cultural exchanges, student exchange programs, flights not reopening between the two countries. Recently, we have seen both the countries practically not allowing any journalists from respective countries to be part of their larger media groupings in each other's country. The visa extensions have not been given to any working journalist in either Chinese side or in Indian side as well. So that tells the kind of frost has been there between the two nations on the overall bilateral dynamics. And but now we know that Chinese president is most likely going to come for the upcoming G20 summit level talks in Delhi. That is going to happen in the second week of September. And before that, it was being expected that Prime Minister Modi may have a conversation to kind of give some warmth to the already cold relationship that India and China have been sharing the last 3 years, because to have Chinese president on board is necessary if G20 wants to have a joint communique or joint declaration. India, being the president of the G20, has an onus or a huge responsibility to ensure that all the countries, despite their differences or despite the global geopolitical and geoeconomic order, they do have some consensus on the joint declaration. Historically, it has been a practice every time that the G20 grouping does come out with the joint declarations. To have that, Prime Minister Modi also needs to have kind of consensus among all the leaders, and probably the meeting that Prime Minister Modi had, where he did raise the concern about the border situation in Western Ladakh, would also pave some way when Chinese side will have Indian concerns understood. Understand the fact that India does believe that there has been a situation that has been created by the Chinese side, and both the side needs to work on it so that the normalcy in other aspect of bilateral relationship could be achieved sooner than later. They have also agreed that the leaders or the senior officials from both the sides will continue to have engagement in order to have disengagement or de-escalation of the situation that has been going on for the last 3 years since the Galwan clash has happened and at the land of actual control between India and China.